This week on the Hollywood in Toto podcast, we share what everyone missed about that terrible, awful, no-good SNL sketch on the Ivy League presidents. We talk with comedian Lou Perez about creating subversive comedy in our cancel culture age. It's what he does day after day. And we share the latest attack on Jewish Americans, but this time the target is the king of the modern sitcom?
Welcome to the Hollywood in Toto podcast. Entertainment news and reviews without the woke Hollywood narrative. Free speech, free expression. Now that's entertainment. And here's your host, award-winning film critic, Christian Toto.
All right, before we get going, I would love it if you subscribe to the Hollywood in Toto podcast. We've got new episodes every Wednesday, of course, and more bonus episodes coming your way. You know, I never watch Saturday Night Live these days. I'm not a masochist. I like myself. But I'll check it out the day after, usually just by reading maybe Deadline.com or some of the other websites that report on what went on the night before. But what I read a few days ago really shocked me. At least it shocked me at first. Saturday Night Live actually did a sketch, the cold open, the signature sketch of the show, about those morally twisted Ivy League presidents. They're the ones that refuse to call raging anti-Semitism on campus bullying. Wow, just amazing. But I thought, my gosh, they finally did a story that they should do. It's like the old SNL days. Listen, the show's never going to change. It is hard left to the core, but maybe once in a while they can kind of peek across the landscape, get out of their bubble and say, hey, this needs to be mocked right now. It's what we used to do best, and we can still do it. Then I actually watched the sketch. Well, suffice it to say, SNL slammed the GOP politician who grilled those presidents far more than the presidents themselves and their ghoulish answers. Just stunning. Not stunning and brave, just stunning.
Thank you, Chairwoman. Now, I'm going to start screaming questions at these women like I'm Billy Eichner. Anti-Semitism, yay or nay?
I'm sorry, what?
Yes or no is calling for the genocide of Jews against the Code of Conduct for Harvard.
Well, it depends on the context.
What? That can't be your answer, you pen lady. Same question, yes or no?
Well, we are serious about stopping all forms of hatred, anti-Semitism, Islamophobia.
The second one, and my tea lady, chance to steal. And keep in mind, if you don't say yes, you're going to make me look good, which is really, really hard to do. So I'll ask you straight up. Do you think genocide is bad?
Could I submit an answer in writing at a later date?
Am I winning this hearing? Somebody pinch me.
The fallout from the sketch was pretty quick and rather eye-opening, I have to say. Many called it the worst sketch SNL has ever done, and hard to disagree with that. Others noted the show's founder, Lorne Michaels, is Jewish, and he should be ashamed of himself for a sketch like that. And I get that take, too. Others said that SNL should apologize for the sketch, and I thought, whoa, wait, no way. No, we don't apologize for comedy, ever. That's woke. That's what cancel culture wants. That sketch was awful. It was morally bankrupt. Absolutely. What would an apology prove? What would it do? Hi, we're really sorry for making a terrible sketch that was tone deaf and distracted from the real problems in play. That means nothing. Well, first of all, they would never say it. They never say it like that. But you know what? The sketch is out there. It's on YouTube. Go find it. Go see it. It's hard to get through, I have to say. But if you want to torture yourself, go for it. But it speaks volumes about what SNL is and how far the show has fallen. Now, you know the show has zero intellectual diversity at this point. There's just nothing going on behind the scenes. Yes, many people of color are now working there. It's more diverse from that perspective. The show was very white for a very long time. But intellectual diversity, diversity of thought, that's not happening behind the scenes. And we know that. We've known that for a while, so pick your shows accordingly. You know, I have to watch SNL sometimes, at least the sketches. It's literally my job. But if you want smart, cutting-edge comedy these days, just skip it. Just go on YouTube, watch Shane Gillis, Ryan Long, Tyler Fisher, Tim Dillon. They're all killing it on social media, on different platforms. You don't have to watch Saturday Night Live. In fact, Saturday Night Live is not dead. It's irrelevant. That's even worse. Comedian Lou Perez does not belong on Saturday Night Live, and that's a compliment. The sketch comedian and author's work is funny, it's smart, and it's willing to hit the targets that deserve to be hit. His Comedy is Murder series is a great example. The videos mock identity politics gone crazy, hypocrisy across the culture, and so much more. This clip from its sketch on Apple's Mother Nature video is a prime example. Now, a few weeks ago, Apple put out a clip. Octavia Spencer was the star. She's playing Mother Nature, and it's all about how Apple is bragging about its green energy initiative. And of course, ignoring some of the people who make iPhones and their other gadgets. Here's a hint. They're not old enough to drive yet. Not even close.
You want us to do more child labor?
We could actually use the help, Mother Nature. The kids don't work as fast as they should. Tiny hands. And they're super lazy. We'd see even higher profits and lower emissions if we increased our child labor workforce by about 95%.
95%?
We've secured the best child labor in China, India, Vietnam.
Paraguay, Brazil?
Not yet, but we could absolutely spin up some mines there by...
Let me guess. 50 years from now when someone else is left holding the bag?
By the end of next year, actually.
Not sure we can find another 40,000 child workers that fast, but we can try to traffic them. Say the word, and I'm heading to the orphanage.
I've gotten to know Lou a little bit over the years, met him once at a comedy club in Colorado Springs. I'm always impressed with his comic takes on things. It's interesting, it's different, it's of course funny, but it really does make you think. And it doesn't have a right-left agenda as well. That's one of the really more intriguing parts of his comedy. He's not a culture warrior. He's a comedian. He's poking fun at things. And there's so many topics to make fun of these days that just get ignored. Well, not by Lou. So I want to find out more about what makes him tick. What does he think about when he makes these sketches? What's he going for? So I did just that. Here's my conversation with the legitimately brave comedian, Lou Perez. Lou, welcome back to the show. You've been creating comedy videos for a while now. I love them. The Comedy is Murder series, it feels like you're working on a different level. The production values, everything is just top-notch. But tell me about it. What can you share about this, how it's different than the world? I mean, obviously the DNA is the same. You have a very similar vibe, but it just feels like you've kind of really reached a new level here. Break it down for me. How is this different, or how does this kind of maybe fulfill all the work you've been doing up to now?
Yeah. So the Comedy is Murder series, I've been producing that with Free the People, Matt and Terry Kibbe and their crew, which consists of Matt Antonucci and Matt Battaglia. There's a lot of Matts. There's when I first started meeting with them, I was like, "Are you guys messing with me? You really all name Matt?"
Lou, can you change your name to Matt? Would you prefer?
I know. You know what? But it's weird because I have a brother named Matt. So now it's going to like complicate the whole Lou cinematic universe. But anybody who's followed Free the People, they probably know them very well from their excellent documentaries that they do. Mm-hmm. And not only is the subject matter great, but they're shot so beautifully. And working together has just been this kind of like perfect marriage of me being able to bring sort of, my comic sensibilities and them bringing this just incredible production value to the work that they do, and seeing what happens when we put the two together. And, if you talk to other, sketch comedy comedians, excuse me, I'm being redundant. If you talk to other people who make sketch, a lot of times things will be limited basically to, there's obviously, budget restrictions, but also, what can you do with the camera? Mm-hmm. And I'm really happy that, we've sort of, reached a point in our collaboration where, we're doing just some really cool stuff, and some things that we have on the pipeline. We have a video should be coming out sometime in December, where it's basically we go inside the editing room of the Roald Dahl series. So anybody who's familiar, there's been some updates to the Roald Dahl series. So we're going to take you right into that room and see what changes were made and why. And then the one that I'm really excited for is coming up. Probably looking into 2024, and it's a little bit more of an ambitious series. It's a parody of the X-Files, and I'm just going to leave it like that.
Okay.
I had the great opportunity to get made up into a very mythical creature that I was really excited to play. So it's been a lot of fun playing with Free the People on the Comedies Murder series for sure.
And you talk about the budget and making it look so slick and professional, and it all does. And it made me think a little bit of Ryan Long, who's a very, very funny comedian, but he's got to up his wig budget because he just slaps the quickest, cheapest wig on maybe that's part of the joke, but I was getting a kick out of that. When you and I talk about comedy, and I think when I read some of the work you've done, it feels like you're more optimistic. You see opportunities. You see there's a fresh space here, where others will say, oh my gosh, you get canceled for a joke. You can't say this. You can't say that. You self-censor. Do you still have that optimism as we head to 2024? Is that still part of who you are, given the work that you're able to do, or do you see other kind of looming threats around the corner?
Yeah, I definitely, I'm still an optimist, and I think a big part of that is I continue to put stuff out there, and I'm, sometimes surprised that that it's not making more people angry, or not making more people angry, or more people are really enjoying it and passing it around and sharing it. And I think that says a lot. And I think one of the things, sort of the nature of the comedy that I've always done, it's always been a DIY project, in that I could never sit back and wait for somebody to create the perfect role for me, or write the perfect part. I always had to, just get up and do it myself, whether it was from, live performance at like the UCB theater, or, stand-up comedy, or, getting together with my longtime partner, Greg Burke, and filming stuff and putting it out there on our own. So, we're sort of like in the, in a time and place where, DIY is just the way, the way to go. So instead of waiting for the gatekeepers at the networks or streaming services or in Hollywood to tell you, okay, you're allowed to make this, you just got to go out and you got to do it. And a big part of that is, reaching out and growing your own audience and establishing relationships with them where they know that they're supporting you. So, anytime that somebody, obviously anytime someone gives me money, I'm very, very happy about that. But, I think more and more people are feeling more comfortable, doing the basics of liking something that you made on social media, signing up for your newsletter, sharing it with their, with their audiences. And the more that people feel comfortable, with that, I mean, it's just going to be, I think, better for everybody.
And I think that one of the things I was skeptical about initially, which I think I've been proven wrong, is that people would not want to go to our Patreon page and support an artist like yourself or do other things that help your mission. It seems like people are very interested in just that. They have a bond with the entertainer. They understand that they're doing something that they can't find elsewhere. And they don't mind being supportive in a variety of ways. It could just be sharing it, but also it could be a monetary, give in that sense. So I think that's great. One of the things that's interesting, I wrote a book a couple of years ago now, and it was all about woke and Hollywood. And once you sit down and write a book on a subject, you get really in the weeds. And you also see it a bit differently because you have to explore it. You have to kind of twist it around a bit. You wrote a book last year, That Joke Isn't Funny Anymore. How did that change the way you approach comedy? Or if it did, or how did it maybe change your worldview in a sense? Because I just think when you get so deep into a project like this, you have to examine it in fresh ways. Otherwise, it just doesn't work.
Yeah, I think one of the big things for me in writing the book is that it was an opportunity to do a deep dive into my own history of comedy. Looking back on 2 decades of doing it, and from starting out in college and just doing it as like a fun thing to getting that that thrill of performing live in front of people and wanting to do it more and more, to, like I said before, that DIY sensibility where it's like, oh, I'm making stuff that would never exist unless I did it. So it was a really good chance for me to look back and to say, like, wow, throughout the ups and downs, the good times and the bad, comedy has always been there for me. So for me, it was like sort of like reigniting a spark, and it gave me the chance to remember, why it is that I do what I do. Of course, I joke in the book about how, I've sort of made myself unemployable in any other field other than comedy. So obviously there's the business component to it, and I need to pay the bills, but it is pretty awesome to be able to make a living by putting stuff out there that I'm proud of and that I want to share with the world. So it's sort of we've all had moments where, like, oh man, maybe I should just look for something else to do. And then, the book is sort of my way of saying, like, no, man, keep going, keep going.
It's funny. I think if I want to get a job at the New York Times, I'd look at my resume and say, yeah, next we're good. We'll pass on you. So it's a blessing and a curse. You recently had a conversation. It was a live event, and it was a debate on comedy and free speech with Michael Ian Black. Now, I know him as a comedian. I follow him on Twitter, and I have to say, he annoys me, and not in a he has a different opinion on life than me, because my wife is different than me. We have different political views, so it's not that. But I have not been a huge fan of his, and I've been very frustrated by him. But we just kind of had a quick email back and forth, and you mentioned that you appreciated him more after this. So give us the lowdown of this event. What happened, the thrust of the conversation, and how the two of you connected.
Yeah, so there is a debate series called Open to Debate. And if your listeners aren't familiar with that, they might be familiar with the early, it used to be Intelligence Squared. So they would have, for years, they would have these very, big intellectual debates on these really big ideas, foreign policy and, the economy and all that. And this time around, they were doing a debate, is wokeness killing comedy? Very important topic. We have to get into that, with everything going on in the world, man, we got to talk about that. And they were holding the debate at the Comedy Cellar in New York. And they reached out to me because I had written a book called That Joke Isn't Funny Anymore. When the producer, called me up, I actually, said to her, I said, I could actually argue that no, wokeness is not killing comedy, because my book is very much a hopeful look to, the future, and also like sharing all the positive stuff about the present. And she's like, no, actually, we have Michael Ian Black arguing. No,
he's got that.
Yeah, he's got that covered, and he also has like 2 million followers on Twitter, and he's part of a legendary sketch group. The dude's got credentials, without a doubt. So I was like, well, I want to be a part of it, and I will argue the yes. So going into it was already kind of like a little bit of an exercise, in that I'm going to be arguing something that I don't necessarily 100% believe, which is fun. And, when I was preparing for it, because I was taking it seriously, it was, at a great comedy club. It was going to run on NPR and WNYC and be available to, anybody who wants to listen to it. So, I made sure that I wanted to be as prepared as possible. So I started reaching out to friends of mine saying, hey, I'm debating Michael Ian Black. What's some stuff that I should read up on? Who should I check out? And every single person I reached out to, every single one of my friends gave me some version of, dude, you got to destroy this guy. Murder him, like just the worst, F that guy and blah blah blah, just like that. And it sort of put me in a position of, oh man, it's like I'm going, it's like I'm going to be fighting, the heavyweight champion, and everybody is expecting me to knock him out. And I started actually getting like pretty nervous about that because I'm like, oh man, I mean, here we are, we're talking. The subject matter is comedy, and everybody wants me to kill this guy. And then, thankfully, my wife and a good friend of mine reminded me. They're like, hey, no matter what happens, remember, it's a comedy show. Mm-hmm. It's entertainment. You got to entertain people, and that really changed the way that I went into it. So rather than going into it with like, gotcha questions and stuff like that, I went into it as a fan of comedy who sees the pernicious effects of wokeism, mm-hmm. and I want to, change that for the better.
Yeah. And so you're saying he's still alive then? You didn't kill him.
As far I haven't checked up on him
as of this taping
today. Yeah, this morning I haven't. Every other day I check up on him to make sure he's still around. But yeah, Michael is very much alive. The debate is available. It's on Open to Debate's website as well as their YouTube channel. And in the end, I had a really great time, and a big part of it was wanting to entertain people and wanting the audience to have a good time. And I think Michael was very similar. He came off as a very thoughtful person. He came off as somebody who, believe it or not, supports free speech. And he came off, and this is really funny because I maybe I should have pushed this a little harder during the debate. He came off as a person that is not woke. Mm-hmm. And I'll repeat that. Michael came off as a person who is not woke. And a big reason I say that is because, one of the, arguments that, Michael had made, I had brought up a number of jokes and subjects that he had made fun of in the past. Oh. And in the past, he had done blackface. He had done, jokes about gays and AIDS and, every sort of, third rail subject matter. He had done some version of a joke about it. And, he acknowledged those things. And he also acknowledged that he wouldn't feel comfortable making a lot of those jokes today. Mm-hmm. But at no point did he say, oh, if somebody were to make those jokes today, they shouldn't work, mm-hmm. or they should have their livelihoods taken away. And I think that's a really important distinction between Michael and the woke, because for the woke, it's if you mess up and you talk and if you make this joke, you should never work again. Yeah. There's no forgiveness, there's no growth or anything like that. So, so in a way, I came away, really liking him. And I think he put on a great performance. And as I mentioned early on in the debate, Michael has this one bit that I came across when I was doing my, my reconnaissance, my my dirty research work. yeah, my oppo, exactly. my own Steele dossier, of him. And he has this one thing. It's a poem where he talks about, if I were a slave master, or if I owned a slave, I think that's what it was called.
Oh my!
And normally, someone would say that like, aha, I got him. He has this thing, this really problematic bit from his past. But the reality is, it's brilliant. Mm-hmm. It's like a really funny, smart, like, great bit, the kind of thing that as a comedian, I'm like, oh man, I wish I had something like that. And the reality is he's a really funny guy who's produced some really great stuff, and he's changed. He's changed as far as what he feels comfortable with, but I don't think he's the type of guy who's going to, be writing to anybody's boss, telling them like, oh man, you shouldn't hire this guy. And in the end, I think comedy won. No matter who you think won the debate, I think comedy won, and the future looks pretty bright for comedy.
Well, I just want to end that with one little comment. You mentioned that bit. You mentioned it was challenging. You mentioned it was great. And I think that's what gets me really upset as someone who enjoys comedy, is that I want us to be able to go to these darker places, these challenging places, and to trust the comedian enough to say he or she is not a racist and not bigoted, but they've got something to share, and they're going to explore it this way, and they're going to make us think, and they're going to challenge us. And I don't want to lose that. That's, it's one of the reasons why I cover this so obsessively, because I think those kind of jokes are important, and as important, if not more, than just the airplane food joke. But the Daily Wire just put out a movie, Lady Ballers, and it's really the third rail of comedy as I see it, or even the third rail of culture. I was curious, are there subjects that you really tread lightly on or just avoid? And I'll mention one for me. When anything with trans, I'm scared to death to write about it, and I'm very careful. I have to, but that does give me pause. Is there anything in your repertoire where you go, gosh, I might go elsewhere?
Well, so I have a number of friends of mine who are also in comedy, and anytime that something comes to mind, I'll send it to them and say, hey, could you give this a read? Like, do you think I should tweet this? And they always tell me to tweet it. And no matter how awful it is. So in a way, maybe that's me just like kind of shirking, my responsibility onto the worst people in my life, telling me that, yeah, go for it. So yeah, I couldn't name like a particular subject or topic. But I think, the goal is that if I am touching on something that might be, controversial, my hope is that, one, it's funny, and that there's an original take there, and that there's something interesting going on, rather than just just something that anybody could come up with.
Sure. I think the work you do and the progress you've made, and the fact that you're still doing exactly what you want to do, maybe answers my question, but have there been any repercussions to the work you do in any capacity? And maybe it's the job you don't get and you never know why you don't get it, but is there anything you can share about that, or have things really, for the most part, not blown back in your face?
Well, I wonder, sometimes, it's like, is there something out there that, I didn't get for one reason or another? But, the reality is, like, unless somebody were to tell me outright, like, hey man, this is why you didn't get this gig, I'm never really going to know. And, I think the healthiest way to, not think about that stuff is just to make sure you're constantly working and creating and making all the stuff that you can. There's one gig for sure that I didn't get, and it actually wasn't a job. It was a date. We're going to go back over 10 years ago when I was single, and I used to write and put out on I used to have Tumblr, and I used to put out stories on my Tumblr, and I was supposed to have a date with a woman that I met online, and she read one of my stories about a previous date, and she was like, no, thank you. She's like, I have no interest in being another story. And then, you turn around, 10 years later, in a way, I guess she kind of is a story, because she's the one who got away, and good for her.
That's right.
Lucky for her.
And your wife is all the happier for it. So
that's right.
It's funny. I've spoken to other comedians in recent years. I think even Chrissy Mayer maybe mentioned this specifically, and she said that some of the blowback that she gets, or repercussion, whatever you want to call it, and she throws a lot of sharp elbows for sure, is from fellow comedians. You sounds like you've got kind of a posse of friends, and I think they've got pretty thick skins. But do you sense that there's some animosity within the comedy ranks, where some maybe want to go beyond what Michael Ian Black might do, or what's been your experience as a comedian?
You definitely see that a lot. It's almost like anytime somebody has a comedy special on, there's, you're expecting some sort of pile on. But when it comes from comedians, I think there's a difference between, comedians saying like, I didn't like that special, or I thought, that bit was lazy, versus like, how dare he, make those jokes? He should, rethink his whole career, and that sort of thing. Comedians are, just like all human beings, and I wonder if there's a larger contingent of envy there. you know, I know that it would be very easy for me, to look around at, my successful friends and, say like, oh, that should be me. I should be where they are. But the thing is, I maybe I'm a little weird where I'm actually happy for my friends who have, who have like, worked so hard and developed their craft and are getting the notice that, the notice now that they didn't have before. So, yeah, I think it's all kinds of people who are going to be, responding to these things.
Gotcha. Before we wrap it up, if I were to look at your political beliefs, I think generically you're libertarian. Is that a fair assessment? I know labels are a little bit sticky and a little bit complicated, but is that where you think you land, or do you even label yourself what you have or what you are?
Yeah, I think that's a pretty good way to put it. And the good thing about labeling oneself a libertarian is that within that there's already going to be like so much infighting among libertarians,
right.
So
that's what
so
they do.
I think it works. Yeah.
No, but given that, and I've watched your work for years, like I said, you don't strike me as someone who goes the clapter route. When I watch your work, whether I love it or like it, it doesn't feel like you're trying to send the message over the comedy. The comedy is always first. Is it hard to do that? Like if you feel passionately about an issue and you want to make a sketch about it, is it hard to kind of get that balance and think, okay, maybe I want to lean forward with the message because I could change some hearts and minds, and maybe it shouldn't be as funny this time. Can you just maybe talk about that balance? Because I would think it's rather intricate.
Yeah, and it comes down to too, like if you're, it depends too, like who the audience is. So for example, the stuff that I do in stand up is different than the stuff I do with, say, the Comedy is Murder series. Like there's certain jokes that will land in a sketch that wouldn't land on stage. So I think that it's sort of the audience and the genre that you're trying to communicate through is going to do that. And I think the exercise that you need to you need to just constantly put your stuff through and ask like, oh, is this original? Am I just repeating a talking point, or am I coming at this in an interesting light? It's just holding yourself up to, I think, a higher standard.
Yeah, when I went to art school, our teacher would physically take her hand, push us away from the easel, and make us stand way back to look at what I was doing, and it always seemed like this weird aggressive move. But as I get older, I think about her, and I think she's right. She was right about a lot of stuff, and I just think kind of taking a step backwards and looking at what you're doing with a more cynical eye can be very helpful. But well, Lou, thank you. I could talk to you forever, but I want to wrap things up and tell you that you can check out his work at the Free the People YouTube channel. The series is called Comedy is Murder. If I have a favorite, it's the Apple sketch. It is brilliant. I don't know how you weren't hunted down by any Apple employees after making that, but maybe that'll happen down the road. It'll be the ultimate sign of respect that your sketch was so important. But I appreciate the work you do, and also check out your book. That Joke Isn't Funny Anymore. It really is an excellent look at the culture, where we stand, why comedy matters, and like Lou said before, it has got a bit of personal perspective to it, which I think matters as well. So thanks a lot, Lou, and keep up the great work.
Thank you.
Alrighty, we're all set. I don't know if this will be this weekend or next weekend. I've got a lot of interviews in the can, but I'm doing a lot of bonus episodes, so this might be like a solo bonus episode with you, or I'm not really sure, but I'll give you a DM or an email, let you know when it's going to go live.
Awesome, dude. Cool. Thank you so much.
Yeah,
really appreciate it.
Take care. Who knew yada, yada, yada could be so genocidal? Huh. Anti-Semitism is running wild across the country. It is pathetic. We talk about it a lot on this show. Can't help it. It intersects pop culture quite a bit. Its latest victim is the mind behind one of TV's greatest sitcoms ever. Yeah, Jerry Seinfeld inspired protests when he played at a New York theater recently. Multiple groups in Syracuse marched outside that theater when the comedian was supposed to perform. They demanded a ceasefire in the Middle East, and of course they savaged the U.S. government for supporting Israel. They also said Seinfeld, who is 69, gosh, we're all getting old, is complicit in genocide. Now, to back up their case, of course, Seinfeld did sign that letter recently that was expressing outrage over the October 7th attacks on Israel by Hamas. But some of the groups in question that were protesting include, and I have to read them, because their names don't exactly roll off the tongue, so bear with me. Just gives you an idea what's going on here. The Syracuse chapter of the Democratic Socialists of America, the Syracuse Collective for Palestinian Liberation, the Resilient Indigenous Action Collective, and the Syracuse chapter of the Party for Socialism and Liberation. All right, gang, it's time for some acronyms. Quick, please. Of course, just know this is all about Gaza and peace, and it has nothing to do with anti-Semitism. Nothing at all. Nope, nada. You buy that? Well, I got a bridge to sell you in Brooklyn. Well, that's it for the show this week. Thank you, of course, to Radio America for having me as part of their great podcast lineup. And while I have your attention, I want you to drop by HollywoodInToto.com. It's updated 7 days a week. You've got news, reviews, commentary, and all the craziness that's going on in Hollywood. It is the right take on entertainment, and it's been woke-free since 2014, which means that we've got an anniversary to celebrate in just a few days. See you next time.
For the ones who get it done, the most important part is the one you need now. And the best partner is the one who can deliver. That's why millions of maintenance and repair pros trust Grainger, because we have professional-grade supplies for every industry, even hard-to-find products. And we have same-day pickup and next-day delivery on most orders. But most importantly, we have an unwavering commitment to help keep you up and running. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
With the Lucky Land Slots, you can get lucky just about anywhere.
This is your captain speaking. We've got clear runway and the weather's fine, but we're just going to circle up here a while and get lucky. No, nothing like that. It's just these cash prizes add up quick. So I suggest you sit back, keep your tray table upright, and start getting lucky.
Play for free at LuckyLandSlots.com. Are you feeling lucky? No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18+ terms and conditions apply. See website for details.